This video is presented by Western and Southern Financial Group, a game plan for your financial future. Every great team starts with a strong foundation, and your future should too. With life insurance built like a championship roster, Western and Southern helps protect what matters most, so you can focus on winning today while planning for tomorrow. Whether you're just starting your journey, building your dynasty, or ready to retire like a champion, Western and Southern has the right play for your life stage. Visit westernsouthern.com to get your free life insurance quote today. Western and Southern, built to win. The final game in our preview show is number 12, James Madison, at number 5, Oregon. 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time on TNT, HBO Max, and True TV. The winner of this game takes on number 4 Texas Tech in the quarterfinals at the Orange Bowl. The Ducks are back in the playoff for the second straight year after posting an 11-1 record, with their only loss of the season coming at the hands of the number 1 team in the country in Indiana. They are losing their offensive coordinator in Will Stein and their defensive coordinator in Tosh Lupoi, both of them taking head coaching jobs in the Power 4 after this year, with Stein going to Kentucky and Lupoi going to his alma mater in Cal. But both of them will be sticking with Oregon throughout their playoff run. The Dukes, meanwhile, are in the college football playoff for the first time in program history, finishing 12-1 on the year with a Sun Belt championship. And like Tulane, their head coach, Bob Chesney, is leaving the program after this year. Chesney, of course, taking the UCLA job, but also, like John Sumrall at Tulane, he is sticking with James Madison throughout his playoff run, too.
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, you've got a lot of intrigue. It's funny, these last 2 games and just how much is happening with both coaching staffs, right? Lanning's going to have to replace both coordinators. Obviously, Billy Napier taking over at James Madison whenever this run is over. And then you mentioned in the first game with Lane Kiffin and John Sumrall and their situation. So really interesting backdrop. Obviously, something we're going to see more of in future playoffs, right? When you have a good team, especially one that wasn't expected to make the playoffs, say like a Tulane or a JMU, teams are going to come sniping.
Also,
right?
I forgot to mention it, Colin Klein at Texas A&M leaving for Kansas State, too.
Also true. Yeah.
After the playoff run.
Yeah, absolutely. And we've heard, it sounds like he's staying, but we've even heard plenty of drama surrounding Kalen DeBoer over there at Alabama. We're pretty sure he's staying.
Yeah, he's going to stay, I think. Yeah.
I think so. He seemed to announce that he's not going anywhere, but certainly plenty of coaching drama around all of these teams, and it creates an interesting backdrop for these games.
Definitely. All right, let's start off with the James Madison offense, Dalton. You have the passing game against what's been an elite Oregon pass defense this year.
So at the center of it all for James Madison is their quarterback, Alonze Barnett, and he tore his ACL in the last regular season game of their 2024 season against Marshall last year. In the first half of the year, you could really feel like, for a couple of factors: 1, recovering from the injury, and 2, keep in mind that his backup, Matt Sluka, came over from UNLV, but he came over because Bob Chesney was his coach at Holy Cross, and he came over to compete for the starting job. Eventually, because Barnett was the more accurate passer, Barnett won the job, and he's really been hot as he's gotten it back to 100% health in the second half of the season since week 8. He's got the 8th best PFF grade in college football among qualified quarterbacks, an 88 PFF grade, 9.5 yards per attempt, 11.5 yard average depth of target. This guy is a big game hunter. He wants to throw the ball down the field, especially down the middle of the field, and lately, with a 1.5% turnover-worthy play rate, he's been getting it done without putting the ball in danger. Obviously, this James Madison offense, as you're going to talk about, is very much based in the run game with Wayne Knight and Alonze Barnett. But if he can take those shots, if they can run the ball enough to get safeties, Dylan Thieneman and this great group of safeties to creep up into the box, what they want to do is take shots between the numbers well down the field. Barnett throws an awesome deep ball, and he's been in a really good rhythm with it in the second half of the season.
Yeah, I have the James Madison run game, which also includes Barnett, too, against the Oregon run defense. And really, can the Dukes rely on their run in this one? Because James Madison's offense is really centered around his ability to run the football. They run the ball about 59% of the time, which is 9th in the country. And honestly, for good reason. James Madison's had an elite run game this year. Right now, they're 2nd in team rushing grade, and they're 5th in EPA per run this year. It's headlined by Wayne Knight and, of course, Alonze Barnett, too. Wayne Knight has over 1,200 rushing yards this year, 10th among all running backs in the country. Barnett has 14 rushing touchdowns this year, tied for 7th among all quarterbacks in America. But Oregon's run defense has been more than solid this year. Right now they're 35th in run defense grade and 3rd in the country in tackling grade. They've only allowed an explosive run on about 7% of attempts. That's the lowest rate in the entire Power 4. If Oregon performs that well in run defense in this game against a really good James Madison run game, it's going to be really hard for me to imagine how James Madison's offense, which is so centered around the run, can find anything going against an elite Oregon pass rush and secondary too. So James Madison, if they want to have a chance at winning this game, their run game has to perform against what's been a really good Oregon run defense.
For sure. I mean, for me, it starts with just an outstanding front four that Dan Lanning's got and Tosh Lapoi's got on this defense. When you look at Mateo Uiagalelei and Tatum Tuioti off the edge, and then those two big defensive tackles, man, they are so important to this run defense. Amari Washington and Bear Alexander, they are an absolute nightmare to try to block. And what they create, opening up gaps for Bryce Betcher at linebacker and Dylan Thieneman, even at safety, flying down into the box, what they do to make those guys' lives behind them so much easier. That's why they prevent those explosive runs, because these guys, they can two-gap. You got to double-team those two on the inside to get around them. They don't give any ground on the offensive line, and the biggest thing is they don't allow offensive linemen to get to the second level. Betcher's got so many free passes to make tackles. Thieneman's got so many free passes to make tackles. Everybody on that second level has free reign to the football. That's how you prevent explosive runs, is you keep your second-level defenders free in the box.
Absolutely. For anyone wondering who watched our playoff previews, by the way, and when we previewed Oregon, we said the biggest weakness in the team has been the run defense. Well, that's because everything else on Oregon is so freaking elite that Oregon, who is 35th in run defense grade, is the only thing you could say, hey, in like 1 or 2 games this year, it was kind of an issue, but not really. That's how good Oregon is all around. That the one thing that we just praised for Oregon, the run defense, that's, I guess, the one thing that they've had in some games a little bit of an issue this year.
And
too.
Look at some of the teams that they've played up front who can really run the football, right? You look at a team, Iowa, we think the best offensive line in the country. Penn State can still really run the football, and in that game, they got back in the game running the football, right? Even a team like Washington, they've got 2 dynamic threats like Damon Williams and Jonah Coleman. So honestly, it's what makes this Oregon team so dangerous, is that we're picking and prodding at this as their weakness, and they're still very, very much above average and allow the lowest explosive run rate in the country, playing in the Big Ten, playing against a lot of these better teams. Even Indiana, they didn't have some crazy rushing day against them. Oregon in the trenches is outstanding. Indiana, 3.3 yards per carry. Now, I'm not even including sacks there. I mean, so you look at what Oregon does, especially, again, to me, their ability for Alexander and Washington to free up their second-level defenders. They're free from offensive linemen getting to the second level and hitting them. This Oregon run defense is still very good. We only call it a weakness relative to everything else, but they're just fantastic all the way around. They are.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, let's move on to the Oregon offense, Dalton. You have the run game for Oregon, which, like the run defense, has been really, really good this year.
And for as much as we've talked all year about Oregon's offensive line and pass protection and Dante Moore and how good he's been, as a lot of years where he would have been a Heisman candidate, he's been so good. Maybe a top 5 pick in the NFL draft. This team can run the living hell out of the football, man. I mean, they're first in the nation with a 94.6 rushing grade, 6.2 yards per carry this season. And you look at their ability to run any scheme. They can run zone. They run a lot of counter. When they get to the edges of your defense, they're extremely dangerous. Kenyon Sadiq flying around as a lead blocker, right? Considered kind of undersized for a tight end, but that doesn't take away any of the aggressiveness that he plays with, And then you look at the multiple threats in the backfield. Noah Whittington, Jordan Davison, the true freshman, D'Air Hill, been really good. 3 different guys with 90 rushing grades. 3 of them on the same team. And then if they run any read option concepts, Dante Moore can keep it. He's a decent enough athlete himself. But this James Madison defense also is really good. Very good in run defense. 93.7 run defense grade. 4th in the nation. 3.4 yards per carry allowed. 2nd in the country, I believe, only behind Texas Tech. That's the company they're keeping in run defense. And I really think it is their ability to prevent you from getting to the edges. A great group of defensive ends, starting with Sair West and Xavier Holmes on the edges, but I think also Trent Hendrick, their highest graded player, their middle linebacker, is going to play a huge part in this, because I do think one of the big problems you have when you play against Oregon is when they start pulling those linemen around, when you talk about especially Emmanuel Pregnon and Dave Iuli, the 2 guards, when they start pulling these guys around and they try to get to the edges, especially with some of these counter schemes, and then Kenyon Sadiq lead blocking for all these great runners, and those runners can create yards after contact too. That is, again, on your second-level defenders. I think if James Madison is going to hang around and run defense in this game against the best running team that they've seen all year, it's going to be Trent Hendrick at linebacker, who's got to have a huge game. He's been doing it all season, but also those edge defenders got to keep contained as much as possible. To stand a chance in this game, to me, for James Madison's run defense, as good as they've been, they got to be outstanding on the edges and getting over the top and not losing contain on just the army of running backs that Oregon has this season.
Yeah, I just realized that this game matches up the top two teams in the country in rushing grade. Oregon's number 1, James Madison's number 2. So two teams that are really damn good at running the football.
And for as much as we talk about Dante Moore, and hopefully they're going to get Decorian Moore and Gary Bryant back at receiver and be full tilt in the passing game.
By the way, did you see? So those two are practicing. Did you also see, suited up in pads, Evan Stewart was at practice? Don't know if he'll play in this game, maybe the Texas Tech game later on, but we could see finally an Evan Stewart return this year too.
I mean, if they're getting more loaded at receiver, that's one thing. But this is a team, for as much as the spotlight is on those guys in the passing game, they run it almost 53% of the time. This is a balanced football team. And in games, and this is why in games where Dante Moore didn't have all his weapons, he didn't have Gary Bryant, Evan Stewart all season, Decorian Moore, the true freshman sensation, they can still just get behind this offensive line and run the football. This is an extremely balanced offense, and they are going to want to prove they can run the ball. Oh, we've heard all about, the PFF college football shows talking about how good James Madison's run defense is. Well, let's go and prove them wrong and get behind one of the best offensive lines in the country. Believe a Joe Moore finalist also, along with Iowa, and I think Indiana is it 3 Big Ten offensive lines?
I think it was Indiana too.
Man, oh man, I mean, look at the offensive lines in the Big Ten, but Oregon is the one that's still here, and it's because they have such a balanced effort. But I'm telling you, when they run between the tackles, it's their usual Oregon inside zone schemes. But I get really scared when I watch this Oregon run game and they get off the edges and they get Kenyon Sadiq out in space blocking on the second level. That's when they get dangerous. If I'm James Madison, the big first concern, as always, is to keep contained, make them run into the teeth of the defense.
Yep, I'm looking at Oregon's passing game against James Madison's pass defense, and really, I think for James Madison, can they get home on Dante Moore in this one? Because he has been stellar in his first year as Oregon's starting quarterback, which is why he's a projected top 5 pick in the 2026 NFL draft if he does declare for this year's draft. He's a redshirt sophomore, 91.2 passing grade on the year, second in the country behind only Julian Sayin from Ohio State right now. The one game, though, where Dante Moore struggled was in the loss to Indiana, where he had a season-low passing grade at about 45 and only a 72% adjusted completion rate, again, a season low for him. In that game, Oregon allowed a 36% pressure rate, which was their worst mark of the year by 19%. So before that, for Oregon, their worst game in terms of pressure rate allowed was about 16%, which is insane numbers for Oregon this year. It's really important, I think, for this one, for Oregon to keep Dante Moore clean. James Madison is 3rd in the nation in coverage grade this year, and they run man coverage at the 12th highest rate in America at about 39%. But Dante Moore is 5th in the country in passing grade against man coverage with an 87.3 passing grade. And like I mentioned before, his receiving core is starting to get fully healthy right now with maybe Evan Stewart this week. I don't think we'll see him this week, maybe in the future, though, of the playoff. The Dukes, meanwhile, are also 9th in the country in pass rushing grade, but Oregon has the best pass blocking grade in America at an 89 mark this year. So James Madison has to get home on Dante Moore because he has been elite when kept clean, elite against blitzes, and elite when he's not blitzed. But when he is under pressure, that's when he's a little more normal. So I think James Madison has to get consistent pressure against Dante Moore, but easier said than done, though, because Oregon has the best offensive line in America at protecting the quarterback.
They need the best effort of the season from their defensive line, right? That's the unit that really dominated the Sun Belt title game against Troy. And then you mentioned all the man coverage they run. Outstanding trio of cornerbacks. When you talk about Justin Eaglin and Elijah Culp on the outside, and then DJ Barksdale on the inside, those 3 guys have combined for 6 interceptions and 20 pass breakups this year. You get to the football when you're in man-to-man coverage, but they have not seen a receiving core this year with the depth that Oregon has, obviously, right? They saw Louisville and Chris Bell earlier. He made one big play on him, but otherwise they held him down pretty quiet, even though they lost that game. But this is a really good secondary. They're sound. They play a lot of man coverage. We'll see if they bring that same approach against all of the weapons that Oregon has. And then you mentioned it, Oregon's offensive line in pass protection is an absolute weapon, because the Indiana game was really the only game we saw more under any sort of pressure, right? And that's Indiana. I mean, they're right now the number one team in the country, right? So you're talking about the best pass blocking grade for Oregon in the nation. And Dante Moore, not only is he good back there when he's clean, but he's attacking down the field. I mentioned it earlier in the show. Highest deep passing grade in the country, and that's with a lot of his weapons being out for a good chunk of this season. If they're fully loaded at receiver and Dante Moore is clean back there, guess what? He is taking shots down the field, and Oregon, as much as any team in the country, they make you respect everything in their offense. Yep. You want to creep up and stop the run? Deal. We're throwing it over your head. Dante Moore is going to rip it down the seams of the defense. You want to sit back and try to prevent those explosives? I got 3 really good backs who can run the football behind this offensive line. They've got a little bit of everything. That's what makes them so dangerous, is they have balance, and we'll see if this James Madison defense is up to the test.
Yep. Ultimately, Dalton, who will move on to play Texas Tech in the Orange Bowl in the quarterfinal round?
I think there is a chance that James Madison's defense could make this kind of interesting. They could bring this into a phone booth early, because they've got a lot of talent. This is a really talented and fundamentally sound defense. But what I worry about, something you mentioned in the run game, and they're also very good with it in the passing game, is Oregon's ability to prevent explosive plays, right? And if Wayne Knight isn't able to get the explosive runs going on the ground against this front, then you put Barnett in obvious passing situations, and Oregon, a team that's very, very good at preventing the deep ball from being completed. You take that away, can Barnett manufacture offense otherwise? I'm worried about the way that he played in this whole passing game played against Troy in that Sun Belt title game, because Oregon's a whole different animal now than Troy, right? And it seems like there's a lot of hit or miss sometimes in this JMU passing game. I think it can be physical early, but I have a feeling that Oregon's defense, because they can prevent explosive plays at such a high level, and I don't know that their receivers are going to be able to get open down the field against an outstanding Oregon secondary. We haven't even mentioned the true freshman Brandon Finney out there at corner. He's been great all year too. I worry that this JMU offense, as the game goes on, gets a little bit stagnant. I think their defense can compete, but I think eventually the dam breaks. Oregon 31, James Madison 13.
I have it 34-17, Oregon beating James Madison. I'm completely with you. I think the Duke's defense could keep it interesting early, but I just don't think James Madison has the offensive firepower to ultimately pull off a colossal upset in this game against what's been an elite Oregon defense. How about this, Dalton? If Oregon wins this game, it'll be their first college football playoff win since the first ever college football playoff back in 2014 when they won in that game too.
Oh, that was when they beat Florida State.
Yep.
That was Jameis versus Mariota.
Yes.
That was it. Who did they lose to? Who was the title game that
Ohio
year?
State.
Was that the Cardale Jones year?
Yes.
Okay, yeah. Wow, what a game.
That was their last playoff win, because, of course, they lost last year in the first playoff game they played last year, too.
Jameis versus Mariota. Yeah, I remember that game. That game got ugly.
So Oregon trying to win their first playoff game since, 11 years ago now in 2014. Oregon, I think, will win this game and move on to play Texas Tech in the quarterfinal round at the Orange Bowl.
Everyone's got takes. Numbers have truth. And the truth is, most people are betting with emotion. Sportsbooks feed on it. TikTok gurus sell it. The hype machine runs on it. That's how you lose. PFF is different. You're betting with winning data. The same data trusted by all 32 NFL teams and the sharpest minds in the game. PFF betting tools take every prop, every matchup, every angle, and run them through our custom models. Built on the best football data in the world. What comes back is your edge. Simple, sharp, and built to win. Want to go deeper? PFF puts a pro-level analytics department in your hands, giving you the same insights teams use to find every advantage. Build your game plan with matchup analysis. Project every snap, every matchup, and every edge before kickoff, because the smartest plays start long before Sunday. Hit rates show how a player performs against their prop and against defenses built the same way. It's the data that gives you real confidence in every pick. Next, Key Insights translates PFF data into the story behind every matchup, giving you the why that powers your bets. From coverage schemes to defensive looks, it's the context that turns raw numbers into winning decisions. When you're ready to take action, Filter through every prop on the market and focus on the opportunities that matter, by game, matchup, or value. Then, shop for the best available line in your area and tap your book of choice to place the bet instantly. Everyone's got takes, but now you've got truth. Bet with data, win with PFF.